another long journey, and again, not ideal filming conditions, but since long journeys give me time to think things over in my standard way, I thought I'd mention something that was on my mind whilst perusing the Facebook forums about atheism and the classic arguments on both sides. And there's one thing I notice quite a bit. Both sides are incredibly thick. They'll probably crop up in a reel run, or most certainly a post watch at some point when I get round to recording and uploading the next batch. But in many of the posts that I end up seeing, atheists tend to be sadly ill-informed, and certainly not willing to look at the more nuanced aspects. A classic one that crops up is they say we support humans or children rather, being torn apart by animals for insulting a bald man, when they refuse to see the simple fact that it was well over 40 children, which is more than any teacher is asked to look after. And even if you look at the scripture, it clearly states they might have even been youths, which could easily have been teenagers. And that goes from a gathering to a riot quite quickly. Others are the classic arguments that certain other deities, demigods, or whatever you call them, also have remarkably similar aspects to Jesus, when half of them are disproved just by a simple search of that particular deity. I've got a video on that coming up soon, so I won't spoil it here. It does make you wonder, do they even bother doing research? Do they even bother looking at the things that they're posting? Or do they just take it and slap it on the forum because it happens to agree with their worldview? If it was something science-based, no atheist would take them seriously. Likewise, if us Christians did something where we slapped on something theology-based, and we did something completely wrong, we didn't do the research, someone would shout us down. If you're going to moan about people not being scientific, objective, or anything like that, you need to have a standard for that you yourself follow. If you're not willing to do that, then quite frankly, why are you doing it on Facebook, where everyone can see it and you just look like a complete buffoon? That's one of the many dangers of social media. The fact that we can just share something as so-called gospel truth, where in actual fact, when you look into it, even briefly, it's complete rubbish. Now, I know many people say Christians do it all the time, and that's something I can't deny. What does that show? There are idiots on all sides. If you want to make a solid case that people on your side are more rational, you need to be that standard rather than keep posting terrible things which really are embarrassing the people on your side. Just because it looks down on the other side doesn't mean it's automatically correct. No. Here is simply some of the evidence I have of recent posts that I've taken screenshots of. Because some people might delete them, some people might hide them, sometimes you'll just lose them. But if you take just this one here, for example, they say the age of the patriarchs add up to well over 12,000 years, and yet theists say the Earth is 6,000 years old. Learn math. I will admit my comment is a bit below the belt, so I'm going to pull out there. But as you can see, theists and atheists can be stubborn in terms of their response. Sometimes you just need to ask the right questions and everyone gets angry. As you can see, in some cases I'm just simply offering the right questions and they're just resorting to insults or even deflections, which don't always go their own way. Right back at that one. There's one from an old one, just to demonstrate a point that some atheists, you may well wish to this is the person that didn't want to believe his response was, his post was not rubbish, and yet, unfortunately, not the case. Here's someone that wanted to believe atheists would do such a thing, and yet I proved it, and he instantly attacked back with something else. And this is one that happened only just earlier today. So yes, this just proves that atheists are just as likely to get their heads stuck in a place where they don't want to learn, where they don't want to accept an argument, and will therefore fight in a corner which obviously they can't win. So know with the arguments they have at mind. How can I put it in a way that is more combat orientated? Yes, I suppose the charge of the Light Brigade is a classic example, showing British stiff upper lipness, solidarity and bravery against insurmountable odds, where in actual fact they completely messed it up, failed to understand the assignment, and ended up going down history as the biggest blunder in military history. It has even gone down in political history as a remarkable excuse. It was an unfortunate lapse by an individual which is now being taken care of through internal disciplinary procedures, if I remember correctly. Unfortunately, that doesn't happen in atheist circles, and it rarely happens in Christian circles, because sometimes they just aren't informed. They don't understand very well. You might say that It's down to the individual trying to make the point that you don't understand, to make you understand. But sometimes people deliberately resist learning, or just decide I've had enough and just walk out. I've had that happen many times. I've actually got a couple of post watches where that has happened. I fully intend on sharing those once I get round to the recording. It's rather interesting, really, to see people just moan and complain about stuff online. But it can be a bit grating. As I said, the danger is you can super easily fall into the pattern of just seeing something you don't like, decide to address it super quickly. You think, oh, that's something that needs to be negated. Argue against it. Put your own argument in the comments, and then you just get stuck in a cycle, particularly when you get caught arguing against an idiot. And before you say that's got to be a particular group, it isn't a particular group. It's any group. You'll find it in all areas. And I'm not just talking about the atheist and theist debate. No, I'm talking about politics. I'm talking about science. I'm talking about pop culture. I'm even talking about videos where people are performing martial arts routines and people say, that's not very good in combat. Well, that won't be very good in a street fight. Sometimes, yes. Sometimes, no. Sometimes that particular technique isn't even designed to be used in fighting. It's designed to train your body. I definitely did a video on this. I think it was called, I don't remember what it was called, something about spinning. Yeah, put a spin on it or something like that. You'll find my full lengths. Just look at the link. But quite simply, you'll see idiots on all sides of the argument. On all arguments, on all forums, everywhere really, you will find someone misinformed, trying to sound well-informed when in fact they don't know anything. Be it so-called theists turned atheist, unfortunately PhD scientists who were heavily Christian, scientists arguing against vaccines. Sometimes all you need just one little study, so forth, to tip people in the direction that they want to be thinking. At the end of the day, you can't lay the blame on the doorstep of one particular group. Maybe the internet, but since many people try arguing against that, if I have one group say that the Bible and the internet are not equivalent, which in theory they are, because you need discernment in both in order to find the truth, or what is useful information, what isn't. Regardless of where you walk, you'll find someone trying to argue a point that really they don't know anything about. The problem is when they try to launch an attack on people from that position of ignorance. They don't know what they're on about, but they just don't care because they don't like the argument and they're trying to shut it down once and for all. So, does that mean, I'm going to say, stop arguing online? Ideally, yes, but I know that's not going to help. Because that's, firstly, something I myself probably won't follow. Not just because it's part of my role as Warrior Pilgrim, but because I'm human. I think it was Horace that said this. Homo sum, homine nil a me alienum poto. Which means something like, as a human, nothing human is foreign to me. Likewise, as a human, I know it makes me sound like an alien, but hear me out. I know I can't hold people to a standard I won't be holding myself to, or I'll probably drop to. So, my best advice: be sensible and be informed. If you have doubts about something, do the research. And I mean proper research. If you find something that is exclusively about the subject in relation to what's happening online, then you need to look elsewhere. For example, if you find something that says, oh, all these deities are linked to Jesus in some way, have all of his aspects, actually try looking up details about those deities on completely separate sites. There are those sites, I've checked. Likewise, look for official ones if you can. Not just community posts or anything like that. If it's something related to medicine, look up CDC, look up NHS, look up anything related to official healthcare. It'll save you a lot of grief in the long run. And it'll also save you getting a red face. Especially you say, oh, that's embarrassing for the group you're arguing against, when you've completely flunked everything. Do your research. Stay humble. And that's another issue. People don't accept they are wrong. I'll admit it's hard to do, because if you're trying to win an argument, you're trying to completely destroy what the other person's saying, especially if you've got a completely different worldview and you want them to understand yours. Sometimes it's just easier to step back, look at it in a different way, and try and do your own research to find an answer. But ultimately, if you can't see a way around their point, it's better to stop, ease back, and look elsewhere. Because clearly, either your argument was wrong in the first place, or they're just refusing to understand. Never resort to insults. Because that, unfortunately, is the sign of a sore loser. Or at least someone who is afraid to look like they've lost. It's more gracious to bow out of a competition than it is to start insulting people just because you're seeing yourself in the losing team. So do your research. Stay humble. Stay safe. And God be with you, my friends.